Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG, and welcome to my top 5 ways The Crew 2 could have been better. Number 5, of course, is the economy. It just doesn't make sense. In fact, it makes so little sense it sort of sucks and blows at the same time, destroying reality. Car costs are out of proportion from one another, and the damn dual economy setup continues to stymie both the player base and apparently Ubisoft, who knew that there were issues even as far back as the alpha and beta, and while fixing a couple of them, never really went through the game to identify the pricing curve, and you're left with a game that feels start and stop in its rewarding mechanism, and for a lot of gamers feels nothing more than a storefront for microtransaction, hoping gamers are just going to think, yeah, I don't know why that Volkswagen Bug costs $100,000, but you know what? It looks like it costs far less Ubisoft bucks. What are those? And then clicks themselves into dead oblivion. Number 4. The readability in the destruction itself. I talked about this in the original review, but one thing to always remember in an open world title, especially one that continuously cultivates that curve of speed as you progress, is to make sure that the player's errors are what's resulting in penalty, not the overall game design. To have such poor readability is almost criminal. Normally, a developer is going to look at the reality of the items in question, their height, what its structure is, what it's made out of, and also take into consideration the path expected for drivers so that the flow of speed is only interrupted due to the errors on the driver's part. But in many ways, the Crew 2 just doesn't do any of this, removing itself from the freeform feel that Forza Horizon has really put out there, and maybe putting itself back a couple generations to some of the open city racers of yesteryear. That brings us to number 3, and that's PvP Day 1. It's called The Crew, and luckily you can collect one, but the fact that PvP is gone is mystifying, leaving a lot of gamers to basically check leaderboards like some damn Cruisin' USA video arcade cabinet at their local pizzeria. And a game like this that so heavily leans on the upgrade path, as well as pushing of both real and fake social elements, should at the very least have a way to, interact with those other players that are not in your group so that you can challenge them easily and, of course, accordingly. Crew 2 has very little of that. This issue also plays directly into the next problem, number 2, which is AI. Rubber banding, the age-old enemy of racing fans the world over. Rubber banding in a light manner can actually be done to simulate the added attention a driver may have when closely following someone else on an unknown track and reading the next curves through them, many times gaining a bit of an advantage due to the visual tells of another player. Or on the other end of the spectrum, when a player isn't doing well, rubber banding can at times facilitate a feeling of competition even at lower levels, so that the accumulation of skill and knowledge concerning the game can be gathered without that soul-crushing boredom of getting your ass kicked every single race. But the Crew 2 has issues both with aggressively strong rubber banding in some races as well as non-existent rubber banding in others. Luckily, you can upgrade your way past it, but sadly, everyone is going to see it at first before they possibly can follow the improvement path and leave those issues behind. It's a little like hoping people stick around for your movie even though the first half of it sucks. And of course, that brings us to number 1, sound. Now, the Crew 2 at times has some excellent vehicle sounds. The number of omissions here, though, is incredible, with a slight change of, say, direction of the original engine noise, only slightly moving when going from fender to third-person camera in the motorbikes, for instance. But the more egregious issue for me is that the game misses out on the auditory mayhem that most racing cars sound like on the inside. And yes, I even mean those cars that officially are street cars, but sound like you've strapped a Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine under your hood and set them on roar for the Emperor. In this day and age, with excellent competition from the likes of Forza and Drive Club series, as well, of course, as Gran Turismo, what does this all leave you? Well, it leaves you with a racing game that has a number of issues in the very categories that the racing genre is trying and attempting to push forward. When we sit back and we look at the Crew 1 and we see all the improvements from the original DLC and all those expansions, then we jump into the Crew 2 and we see issues like this, it really does make you continually question if anybody was actually at the wheel, or if maybe they had rubber banding when it came to the development. So that's it for me on this one. I'd like to know what you think on this game or any other. Is there a game out there that you have 5 things you think could have made it overall a better experience for yourself and for others? As always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. Check out Reddit, Twitter, or become a patron on the Patreon website. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.